What is up, guys, and welcome back to another weather forecast here by Agent Weather Forecast. And in this video, we do have a very exciting and very highly anticipated forecast. In this video, it's not my official winter forecast, but it is my first preliminary winter weather forecast for the 2023 and 2024 winter for the United States. I'm not going to be going over like what I usually do with the Enzo forecast and future or comparisons from past years because I kind of did that just last week. So if you guys want to watch that video, it's basically hasn't changed since then since it's a long range forecast. So that video kind of has a lot of the explanation for why my maps are the way they are. But in this video, I'm just going to be going over basically three maps, or four maps: temperature, precipitation, snowfall, and then the overall winter forecast, kind of like for the whole year for certain regions. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get in the video. So here's the overall temperature forecast that I have for this overall winter. So this is for like the 4 months of winter kind of averaged out. So this isn't specifically for a specific month or time frame. This is kind of just what I think will be averaged out for the whole winter. So based on what we're expecting here with the moderate to on the stronger side El Nino, we are looking at a potential for a favorable cold and obviously highly precipitated winter for parts of the eastern United States. And with the strong El Nino, what this would do is definitely favor not only the east but specifically the southeast, where we kind of see that subtropical jet stream kind of shift further south, and then the polar jet stream shifts further south as well as it becomes unstable, and that would be very favorable for a lot of Arctic blasts to make its way towards not only the eastern United States but deep into the southeast. And a lot of typical neutral years, La Nina years, polar vortexes do struggle to kind of strengthen or maintain strength into the southeast, but with the El Nino year, it is very favorable, and that will kind of coincide between the Arctic Oscillation, the PNA, the NAO. A lot of that would be very favorable for cooler air to specifically make its way deep in the southeast, where we'll be seeing a lot or well below average temperatures. Overall, I am looking like, if you guys do watch the video that I was talking about in the intro, I do see a lot of comparisons between what we're going to be seeing possibly this year towards the 2009 and 2010 winter. And 2009 2010 had an overall very cold United States just in general. So I have it in that light blue color, slightly below average temperatures. I think that'll be pretty expansive from the areas of Southern California all the way up towards the Midwest, including much of the central United States and, of course, all of the East. So I do think overall there will be a lot more time frames, or at least days, that you are below average than above average in these areas in the light blue. I think we'll be seeing, again, obviously in the Midwest, no matter what you're seeing, La Nina or El Nino, we're still going to be seeing those strong and frequent polar vortexes because, again, you are right there, and the further north you are in the United States, obviously you're more prone to these deep and cores of the kind of polar vortex and um, Arctic blasts that come from Canada. So overall, in that light blue, large expansive area below, slightly below average temperatures. So more than likely you are going to be a little bit closer towards normal than in areas in the second shade and dark shade of blue. And the second shade and dark shade of blue, we're going to be seeing more likely much below average temperatures. So maybe 10 degrees below average sometimes, or very strong and frequent and even like long lasting patterns where the temperatures are going to be very strong below average. So meaning we're going to be seeing kind of that core strength of those Arctic blasts. Like I said, if it were to be a strong El Nino this year, which we're expecting, definitely going to be expecting these frequent blasts to kind of push their way deep into the south and even parts of the coast, like maybe the Gulf of Mexico. And that will again coincide with that pattern that we're going to be seeing at the end of the forecast and the end of the video. But second shade of blue, a lot more frequent cold blast and a little bit cooler than average. And then in that dark blue, that's where I think we're going to be seeing kind of the coldest temperatures this year. Not like actual temperatures, but to your average. So obviously areas in Georgia and the Carolinas aren't going to be colder than areas in the upper Midwest. But compared to the average, like their average, I think these areas in the dark blue, including the Southeast, Mid Atlantic, and even Ohio Valley, can see well below average temperatures. Um, and very frequent Arctic blasts, and I do expect maybe some record breaking Arctic blasts this winter very frequently in these areas. So definitely a cold winter based on the overall pattern. And again, if you want an explanation for why I think this pattern will be the way it is, go ahead and check that latest video that I did last week. And as I get closer towards obviously winter itself, I will make these videos a little bit more detailed. And then the opposite end, I do think we will be seeing again very frequent ridging here and positive P&A patterns this winter. So definitely expecting a lot warmer or not a lot warmer temperatures, but warmer temperatures in general in areas in the Pacific Northwest. Again, doesn't mean you're not going to be seeing cold blast or below average temperatures. You are going to be seeing that. Obviously, it's the U.S. pattern will not stay the same for 4 months. It's going to be flip flopped, obviously. But overall, for the general winter, I think we will be a little bit warmer, a lot warmer than colder, if that makes sense, in the Pacific Northwest. So I think we'll be seeing longer time frames where you're going to be experiencing ridging and warmer weather. Then you're going to be seeing troughing and cooler weather. And that yellow color is slightly above average. Again, that could go back and forth. Maybe you're a bit closer to normal. I do think there's kind of that area kind of in that kind of west central part of the United States where it could be very iffy. It's still, again, a few months out before winter. But overall, I think that's a very iffy pattern here. Maybe you're going to be closer to normal. In that area, it's just very iffy here, and it's super far out. So just take it with a grain of salt. And then I'm a little bit more confident in that second shade of orange where we'll be seeing above average temperatures. And I think we will definitely be seeing higher confidence in those areas, specifically on the Pacific Northwest coast, where we are definitely going to be seeing frequent ridging in warmer temperatures, maybe even some blocking high patterns where we will be seeing very long expanded time periods where we're going to be seeing warmer temperatures in the west and cooler temperatures in the east. Let's go ahead and look at the precipitation. This also coincides with the El Nino pattern. So obviously with the El Nino pattern, we're going to be seeing a lot more moisture as the Pacific subtropical jet stream pushes further south. We are going to be seeing a lot more moisture here, and that will definitely be heavily in place across as well the coastal Gulf of Mexico, coastal southeast coast, and as well even the lower Appalachian Mountains. So this again will coincide. Like this is typically what you would expect in your typical El Nino pattern. And since we are basically guaranteed an El Nino, obviously my forecast will coincide with that. So definitely going to be seeing that typical El Nino pattern, at least overall for the whole winter in general. So in that lighter shade of green, I think we'll be seeing slightly above average precipitation. As we kind of go further north, obviously in the El Nino pattern, you're going to be expecting a little bit less moisture as you go further north. And definitely in that central United States and upper central United States, you're going to be expecting either normal or below average precipitation. As in that area, that's where you kind of typically be seeing kind of areas of high pressure and areas where you're going to be seeing very little precipitation in general. A lot of those storms where a lot of that heavy precipitation will maintain on the coast, that's where we're going to be maintaining your moisture. And again, where that we're going to be basically seeing how you see in El Ninos, where there's going to be kind of a gap here in the upper and even western United States where we kind of see the kind of normal jet stream and then the subtropical jet stream kind of meet up. That's exactly why you're going to be seeing that higher precipitation values, and as well cooler temperatures specifically in the southeastern coast. And kind of this will again with that kind of gap, that's where you're going to be seeing your rage and your higher pressure. So obviously you're going to be expecting a little bit drier precipitation values here. And then again, like I said, this area is going to be very iffy, not only when it comes to precipitation, but as well with temperatures. This is kind of the area where you can't really draw the line necessarily, because especially since it is so far out, and specifically since El Ninos are very different. But based on what we know with El Ninos, we can draw a clear line that generally it will be split kind of in this manner, not only with precipitation, but as well, again, mainly with temperatures as well. So kind of seeing that higher confidence of very high, as like basically as you go further southeast, you're going to be seeing, in my opinion, higher confidence of above average precipitation with the subtropical jet stream, a lot of moisture, and then obviously will coincide with, since it's precipitation, more snowstorms, a lot stormier weather, while I'm a little bit more confident specifically in the second shade of brown of below average precipitation. I think, again, for the most part, we will maybe again you may have very cold time frames here in these areas in Montana and North Dakota and all of that, but I just don't think there will be a lot of moisture coincided with that cold temperature. I think it'll be more of that kind of dry cold temperature that we see frequently in the upper plains, while I think we'll be seeing kind of that more precipitated cold type weather, kind of cool and chilly or cool or cold and wet uh, across not only the southeast but as well as south central in Texas and New Mexico and Arizona, and then carrying up the east coast with, again, if you're going to be seeing a lot of colder weather and precipitation above average precipitation above, more likely going to be seeing more frequent nor'easters and east coast rider snowstorms, etc. Especially if we do have a very favorable NAO pattern, which again would coincide with a lot of these teleconnections do coincide with like the El Nino pattern, the La Nina pattern, and with the El Nino pattern, we would expect more than likely a negative NAO and then a positive PNA, which would help coincide with a lot of troughing and strong troughing with basically uh, no barrier towards what we could see possibly. So we could see maybe a lot of maybe deep deep nor'easters far inland, or with the El Nino you would actually favor not only favor nor'easters but coastal nor'easters specifically. You would see that a lot more frequently with the NAO pattern and with the high precipitation values, and again with the very cold temperatures to back it up. So definitely looking at overall a lot of the more east United States expected, at least in my opinion, to have higher areas of confidence of above average precipitation. But again, here's a snow forecast. I think again, so as you can obviously add the dots, when you have cooler weather and Arctic blast, a lot more favorable to kind of go deep into the east and deep into the southeast. And then if you have again that subtropical jet stream bringing moisture from the basically the Pacific, and then of course areas of low pressure likely to develop somewhere along the Gulf Coast. You're obviously going to be seeing with the colder to the north and the precipitation in the south. You're going to be seeing a lot more frequent snow where those mix, and that's again going to be highly favorable in those El Nino years. Obviously, in La Nina years, we do still have snowstorms in the southeast, but they're either going to be minor or they're going to be a lot less frequently or a lot less frequent. And again, even in La Nina years, you could still have a week or two where kind of the pattern switches, and that could be again said again for El Nino. So there could be a week or two, maybe more time frames where we're not getting a lot of snow in the southeast, and we're getting that in the northwest where I expect less precipitation. But again, for the overall winter, I'm expecting a very high confidence of much above average snowfall in these areas in the dark pink and as well even the purple. Doesn't mean you're gonna get more snow. Like doesn't mean Atlanta's gonna get more snow than maybe Milwaukee, but it just means I think based on the averages, I think Atlanta could get, or not just generally Atlanta, but these areas can get more snow based on their average than what areas that are not shaded can get. And again, I didn't really color anything necessarily here for below average because I feel like it's still very far out to kind of really decipher that. But I do have a lot more confidence in making areas that will have above average and below average snowfall. That's why I kind of made this map. And again, I think there will be pretty extensive areas across the majority of the southern and eastern United States that can see above average snowfall. So you can kind of see from California, Southern California, all across the country into Maine. So I feel like this will definitely be a winter that favors specifically the South Central, the Mid Atlantic, and as well as Northeast. I don't feel like we're going to be seeing a lot of snowfall based on average across areas in the Midwest. I feel like there's going to be there could be snowstorms that like linger, but I feel like they're going to be very weak in general for the most part. This winter, I feel like it'll be more on the mild side across the upper north central United States in general, like you see with the temperatures here, a little bit on like kind of the between the slightly below, slightly above, and then kind of between that slightly below and slightly above for precipitation. So still on a little bit on the iffy side for that, still pretty far out. But again, more of my confidence is betting on the southeast and the overall eastern United States to see a very favorable pattern in general, to see a lot of snowstorm potential. Doesn't mean we'll get it, no, but is the pattern there? Possibly. It is definitely there for the ingredients are definitely going to be there if this El Nino does pan out, which again, it's 100% chance that it does actually occur. So it's just does the ingredients actually come together? It's all about perfect timing, specifically for areas in the deep south. But overall, high confidence in general for a snowier snow or a snowier southern United States. So here's the overall kind of forecast with all of that being considered. This is kind of how I've kind of labeled each region. So I will just start off with the cool and wet. So as you can see in the lime green, basically, for areas stretching from Nevada, mainly in the Four Corners, you can kind of see these areas are mainly focused on the very southern and coastal states for the most part. So obviously, we could see snow there in some of these areas. We could not see snow in some of these areas. Obviously, like areas in like the higher elevations in Mexico and Arizona, I haven't put like considered that that would take too much detail. But overall, in this lime green area, cool and wet, so going to be seeing wet precipitation, whether it's snow, maybe some ice. Again, that's why that icy mix is just above it, because again, more than likely we'll be seeing more cold rain in these areas, considering how far south they are. But again, there's always maybe that one very rare snowstorm where we can see snow in like the Panhandle, for example, like we saw in 2017. And that can happen here specifically this year. It's a lot more likely to happen than what it was last year. But cool and wet, a lot cooler weather. Definitely be seeing those cold temperatures, especially with those frequent Arctic blasts. I'm predicting to come far south. And then again, going to be a lot wetter than usual. So we're going to be cool and wet. It's definitely going to be, if you are a fan of that in areas in like the coast, you're gonna definitely be enjoying this winter. But if you're not a fan of that cooler and wet weather, then definitely not gonna be a fan of that. Just above that, again, as you go further north, you're gonna be seeing kind of this trend here from cool wet to icy mix and very cold to polar vortex. You can kind of see the overall pattern here. So in the just above that, in that pink color icy mix, so a little bit closer to that barrier where the lot colder areas, but a little bit further north than where that main precipitation will be. So still a lot more favorable for actual frozen precipitation as we get further north with colder temperatures. So icy mix across much of parts of the south central, like Texas, Oklahoma, and those areas kind of between that cold air and that wet precipitation. Again, we're obviously going to be seeing snowstorms here, but overall, they're going to be more on that mix and kind of in between that cold and precipitation. So definitely a lot of areas that could see ice here. That's again a lot of these areas along that wet barrier. And then in this kind of, I'm not sure really what color this will be considered, maybe like a blue green. We are gonna be seeing an overall just snowy winter. Like it's gonna be snowy, but I don't think it's gonna be as above average snowfall to be considered in the huge storms area. And these huge storms area that includes the Appalachian Mountains, going along the Northeast, and a part of the Great Lakes. I think that'll be the more favorable region to see these storms that kind of move basically as nor'easters, but not necessarily nor'easters necessarily, but move in the general like track as nor'easters, but a little bit more inland. So like again, if you have cooler air coming in, precip maybe a little bit more north, you can kind of see maybe snow develop somewhere around here, and then as you gradually these precipitation and cold get closer together, then you're going to be seeing these huge snowstorms across areas in the Appalachians, maybe even parts of Georgia, Carolinas. This could be altered as we get closer. It could go further south. It could be altered, but I think this is definitely where my huge confidence is for snow in general. And then we have again the blizzards across. That'll be kind of more tied with nor'easters across the coastal Northeast. They're definitely seeing if we do have a favorable El Nino pattern, which we're looking at, definitely gonna be seeing very frequent coastal nor'easters. Could be a good year for areas in New York City, Boston in general. And I think again, if we have a very favorable NEO pattern, definitely going to be seeing very strong nor'easters, coastal nor'easters, and overall, just in general, a lot of snow with that precipitation and cold. Definitely a lot of ingredients, as you can see. Overall, a lot of ingredients adding up here in the east, and then stormy weather across areas in the southwest. Could definitely be seeing a very active monsoon season with the El Nino year, and then again, very cold weather in general in this area. Like no matter whether we see a La Nina or El Nino, it's still going to be very cold in these areas. I really won't change it. It maybe be less frequent or less strong, but still overall in these blue areas, very cold. And then again, undeniable polar vortex across this purple region. Like I said, it could be. I may have you under slightly above average for temperature, but again, you're still gonna be seeing these polar vortexes. You are in the Dakotas and Upper Midwest. It's gonna happen no matter what. So it's still gonna be very cold no matter what. Like Maybe your average could be like the high average could be 10 degrees. Again, that's still really high if it's slightly above average. And then again, typical snow, not really much change here. Typical amount of snow, like I said, it could still be above average and a little bit drier, but you're still gonna be seeing mountain snow. Like it's gonna happen. Like it's the weather pattern may be slightly different and altered compared to average, but it's not gonna stop the mountain snow, specifically with how much precipitation and how cold it is on average in general here. If you take slightly below that, it won't really be a huge difference. Like I'm not expecting very warm and very dry conditions. I'm kind of expecting it more on the mild side, maybe slightly below average precip and slightly above average temperatures. And then again, overall, I'm just more confident it's drier across the Pacific Northwest here. And you can kind of see how it goes from stormy to dry. Like I said, this general area here, is going to be very iffy. Actually, I feel like it's going to be this general area here is very iffy considering how far out we are. But in general, this was my first preliminary winter forecast. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, I didn't have a lot of detail to it because we are still very far out. This is just my kind of first thought still. As we get closer, maybe into November, and once we get into December, I will have a lot more detailed forecasts. But again, I don't want to take this forecast with a grain of salt because again, we are still in September. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video and see you guys later.